Okay, awesome. So welcome, hello. I hope you've been enjoying ETHWarsaw so far. I personally think it's been great. Can't wait for the hackathon entries. So I'm Atris. I'm an engineer at Gitcoin. I work on the Grants Stack, which is what we're going to be diving deep into today. And these are my socials. So if you want to ask any questions afterwards or during, then you can add me on any of those sites or apps. And you can also catch me around the conference after the talk. And yeah, let's get started. So first, a brief history. Who here has actually heard of Gitcoin? Have you ever heard of Gitcoin? Okay, some people have heard of Gitcoin. Awesome. Is there anybody here who has donated during a Gitcoin round? Also a few people. Awesome. So for those of you who have never heard of Gitcoin, some brief history. So in 2017, Gitcoin was founded mainly to support development of open source projects through what we called bounties, which was basically a way to attach a financial incentive to completing some sort of issue in an open source repository. And a year later, the seminal QF paper was published. And another year later, we actually integrated the ideas from that legendary paper into the Gitcoin Grants program. And 4 years later, we have distributed over $50 million of funding. And we have contributed to the creation through this funding to many influential projects that you most likely already know, like Optimism, Uniswap, POAP or POPE, and Tornado Cash also, and more. And here we are in 2023, 50 million to date, but we're not stopping there. This is actually a snapshot from our impact report page. So you can find it at impact.gitcoin or impact.gitcoin.co. I highly recommend that you check it out. I personally find it very inspiring to see what we can achieve when we come together as people with a common goal of funding public goods. And so this is all great, but what's next? How do we maximize Gitcoin's impact? So one of the issues of our grants program, I'm just going to adjust this. Awesome. One of the issues of our grants program that also makes scaling harder is that it's highly centralized, right? So all the applications are reviewed by us, by Gitcoin folks. We coordinate the funding, we get the sponsors basically, we coordinate the marketing and everything. So we have scaled our impact thanks to our partners, which is basically that a lot of our rounds are no longer funded from our treasury, but they are funded through our partners, which contribute to a round, contribute the funds, and also do a part of the marketing. So those are the partner rounds or sponsor rounds. For example, the ENS ecosystem round, but that's not enough. We just find that it's not enough to do these rounds. We want to scale more. We want to decentralize more. So, which is why we invented or thought of the Grants Stack, which basically those are tools for communities to fund their shared needs. An important thing to notice here that we are no longer constraining ourselves to public goods. So we are broadening the scope into any shared needs that the community might have. So our vision with Grants Stack was to take our vast experience of running the Gitcoin Grants program and develop a suite of applications and contracts, a whole protocol, so that anybody can run their own Gitcoin grants permissionlessly. This solves many of the problems we had with our previous grants program, namely centralization, right? So we are a DAO, so you can, each and every one of you can engage in governance by posting on the governance forum, taking votes, holding GDC and voting for it, or delegating it to your favorite delegate. But that's not enough, because the issue with basically us as a DAO is that there is a main grants program, right? We do not want there to be one main Gitcoin grants program. We want there to be many grant programs running in parallel. So it's not enough that we have once a quarter Gitcoin grants program. We want there to be like 10, 20, 50, 100 rounds running at the same time from many different people, completely permissionlessly, without relying on us for help or for organizing and running the rounds. With their own funds, with their own requirements, with their own gating, donors, grantees, their own values and visions. So we try to be kind kind of apolitical or focus on the core values of the Web3 ecosystem and of the Ethereum ecosystem. But obviously, coordination is hard, and we can't cater to everyone. So we want other communities who might have different values to also run their own grants programs and to be able to do that. So we don't want to be the gatekeepers to public funding, which is why we're creating the Grants Stack. Another problem that this also solves is our scaling problem. So by allowing anyone to run a grants program, we are no longer the choke point of the programs. Because right now, basically, we have to approve or reject all the applications, right? And there are thousands and thousands of applications each quarter, which is very hard. We have a team working basically like 24/7 during the application phase, just approving or rejecting grants, getting feedback, coordinating, and everything, which is very hard. And if you want to scale this to millions of applications, then obviously, like, we would need I don't know, like 5,000 people just doing this full time, which is not really possible. It also allows new ideas and mechanisms and use cases to thrive. So Grants Stack is designed from the ground up to be modular, unlike our old platform, which is basically a humongous Django monolith, but it has served us well. And so we want it to be modular because then anybody can develop and use their own strategies. For example, anybody can develop and use their own front ends. Maybe you want to donate from a CLI, from a terminal. Maybe you just don't want to use our front ends. Maybe you want to just directly interact from the chain. Maybe you want to run data analysis. Maybe you want a different front end. Maybe you're catering to a community of visually impaired people that need some sort of other interface. So it's all modular so that you can plug and play basically anything you want from the system and make it your own, fork it. Any of that can be removed, adapted at will. So how do I achieve this vision of decentralization and scaling? With a software suite that has everything communities need to run a successful grants program. Consists of a few parts. First is the contracts, which we call the Allo protocol. Currently V1, but also V2 incoming. Then manager, which is used by round operators to create rounds, manage them, monitor them while they are running, and then finally choose to export the data, maybe run some Sybil analysis, or maybe not, finalize the round, and then pay it out. Then we have Builder, which allows project owners to build their own chain profile and apply to rounds, manage their applications. We also have what we call Project Registry, which is basically a contract on chain where project owners can build up their reputation over many different rounds through many different communities. And then basically when they apply to a round, they can leverage this registry to show, hey, I've already received this much funding from other rounds. I already have credibility. I already have reputation. And then there's Explorer, which is used by donors to both explore available rounds, explore available projects, and finally donate to them, check out. And also Gitcoin Passport, which can optionally be used to provide Sybil resistance, so it's not kind of hard-coded. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it is a one-click integration, so if you want to, with one click, you can very easily add in Sybil resistance to your grants program so that they don't get gamed, they don't get botted. But this list is actually not complete, and fortunately it never will be, because we want this stack to keep evolving, and we want people to keep building on this and adding into it. So if you have a novel use case, we'd love to see you extend Grants Stack to fit your needs. So all of the Grants Stack parts have some common traits and standards that we strive for. Everything is open source, and not just open source, but Libre software. We have seen some people and companies and DAOs release software that is open source, but it's not actually free, as in freedom. So there might be like business source license or something like that. Everything we do is released either under GNU GPL or under MIT or very similar licenses, so no restrictions on use. You can remix it, you can fork it, no licensing fees, no hindrance to doing anything you want, basically. Everything is on-chain, so access to contracts and data can be censored. So for example, in the old platform, a lot of the data that was, for example, needed for analytics was basically just stored in a database. All the votes were still on-chain, but it was hard to get to them. Right now, we store everything but the largest data on chain, so anybody can basically go to our singleton round factory, from there track all the rounds that were ever created, and from there track all the votes that were ever cast, all the projects that ever applied, the application status, everything. So it's all freely available basically to anyone who has access to an Ethereum RPC or the RPC of the chain that we're currently running on. And for large data, we store the data on IPFS. And commit to the hash on chain. But again, we are not limited to IPFS. You can use basically anything you want, any kind of data availability, let's say backend. You can use Arweave if you want to. Shout out to Arweave, it's a great project. Or other storage protocols. And of course, we encourage you to actually do so and implement other storage backends. This is mostly used, for example, for text of the applications, descriptions of the grants. So we also use or try to use the latest and greatest tools. So in Allo V2, we are using Foundry for testing, which we love. We are also using VM on the front end, which is really awesome software. Huge shout out to the VM authors, absolute delight to use. And we also develop our own tooling where necessary, such as the Allo indexer, which we use to index all the relevant info we need, both from the chain, from IPFS, and from other APIs, for example, for prices, and also from Passport. Shout out to my colleague Mo for leading the development and deployment of that beautiful system. So in terms of the actual system, let's start with the contracts, as they are the core of the whole stack. So we built them on the battle-tested OpenZeppelin base. We have completed an audit way back by Sherlock with actually no high-impact vulnerabilities found and only a few low-impact, which if you do auditing or if you've ever had your protocol audited, is like very weird. I was almost scared that we missed something, but luckily it's okay. And the voting and payout strategies are also modular, which is very important. So you are not locked into quadratic funding. If you want to, you can plug in your own strategy like quadratic voting. You can also do direct grants. In fact, we do have a direct grants self-serve integration coming in shortly. So if you want to, you can literally like change up the contract that is used for voting. And for example, you can gate it. Maybe you have a community, an NFT community, and you want to do a grants program, but you want to gate it so that only people with the NFT of your community can actually vote. You can also do that. Nobody's stopping you. And yeah, so it's very modular. Then we have Manager. So moving to the front-end apps mostly. Manager lets you create rounds as a round operator, lets you review, approve, or reject applications that come in. Also monitor in-progress rounds. So we have a stats page that lets you see how much people are donating, a few different stats that you would maybe like to monitor when your round is running to gauge, for example, for marketing impact that you're doing for your round. You can also download all the data from chain kind of pre-processed for you to do Sybil analysis, for you to do some final counting on the votes, some final results, again, marketing. And then when you're ready, you can finalize the round, and then you can pay out the grantees that you choose. For Builder, this is catered toward project owners. So you can create a project profile that lives on chain. You can apply to rounds. You can see the rounds that are currently open for applications. And you can also, there's also stats for your current and past rounds. Then we have Explorer, where, as the name suggests, you can explore active rounds. You can pick projects to support, and you can check out. And I don't know if there are any people who donated during our last round that ended, I think, like 3 or 4 days ago. But we actually developed a new experience, what we call MRC, multi-round checkout. Actually, it's not just multi-round, but it's multi-chain checkout, so that we have this flow where we basically guide you through donating 2 different rounds on one chain and also 2 different rounds on other chains, and you basically just click like confirm, confirm, sign, confirm in your wallet. We have also integrated permits, so you no longer need to do approves. You can save some gas and just send us a message permitting us to use your money, and then cast the actual vote. It's all integrated. And we're also exploring other new avenues for how to make voting even more seamless. So we are currently in the process of exploring gasless voting, one-click voting, and also fiat on-ramps. And also can't fail to mention Passport. This is actually their old logo because they updated their logo like 3 days ago, their whole branding. But can't fail to mention Passport, which is a very useful tool if you want to defend your rounds against Sybil attacks. So Sybil attacks are obviously very common, not just in airdrops, but also in grants, because the incentive in quadratic funding make it such that Sybil attacking a round is very profitable if you can do it. Luckily, we have Passport, which requires users, or optionally, if you turn it on for your round, requires users to prove that, to some degree, that they're human, using things like you have an ENS, you have some POAPs, you stake GTC, you have a Twitter profile. All of this is done in a privacy-preserving way, so you are not actually associating your Twitter profile, let's say, with your address on chain, but you are just attesting to us, basically, that you actually own a Twitter profile. And with this, you build up your Passport score, and then we have like some sort of confidence that you are not a Sybil, you are indeed a human, and we can actually match your donations. We offer it as an API that you can integrate easily. If you're using Grants Stack, then it's literally just like a radio button that you can tick, yes, I want to use Passport, and voila, you're using Passport. But it's also open source, so you can fork it, you can host it yourself. You don't need to rely on us for the API or the data. So what's next? Grants Stack has already been used to power the Gitcoin Alpha, Beta, and now GG18 rounds, a UNICEF round, and other partner rounds, and we are not done. We have Allo Protocol v2 coming in. It's currently finishing up the design phase, so we have some latest or last proposals coming in to change the design. Then once the design is locked in, we're going to do an audit, again, to make sure that everything is secure. And we are shooting to run GG20 on it, so not the next round, but the round after that. So very exciting, personally, for that. And we're also in the process of overhauling the whole entire user experience of all the Grants Stack apps, so Manager, Builder, Explorer. All of that is going to be overhauled. Lots of great UI things coming that way that I'm, again, personally very excited about. We're going to make donating easier than ever. And finally, we invite all of you hackers, builders to go and explore Grants Stack on GitHub, tinker with it, fork it, develop new tools, develop analytics, submit an Allo improvement proposal. So if you want to change something about the underlying protocol, maybe you want to have your strategy kind of audited and checked by us to make sure that it's all okay, and make it kind of an official strategy, submit an Allo improvement proposal, and obviously have fun doing all of that. And obviously, if you are part of a community, or if you are a community leader that is exploring ways to fund their shared needs, then get in touch with us, because we'd love to make that happen. So that's a wrap. I actually finished quite early. We have 10 minutes for question. This has been Grants Stack by Gitcoin. Thank you very much. I hope you're as excited for the future of public goods funding as I am. And yeah, thank you.
I see multiple questions already.
GM.
Jam.
This is Giois from Atris. First of all, thank you so much for all the amazing work you guys are doing at Gitcoin. We've been fortunate to be a grantee in the open source round 4 times.
Awesome.
The last one.
Great to hear.
Now, question. There's been a lot of improvement around the UX already, but the feedback I'm seeing frequently is what can be done further to the Gitcoin Passport to make this 10x improvement around verifying your
For Passport specifically?
For Passport specifically, yeah.
Yes. So I am not personally on the Passport team, so I can't speak much to the actual behind-the-scenes improvements. One improvement that I personally found really helpful was the I don't know exactly what they call the flow, but there's this like button that you can click when you sign into Passport that basically lets you just refresh your stamps. So you don't need to go through and click like, yes, I have ENS, blah, blah, blah. You can just say, refresh my stamps. It will find all of your stamps, and basically in like one transaction, you will refresh all of that. I know that they just rebranded, and I think as part of the rebranding announcement, they also announced some UX improvements are coming your way. But if you have any ideas, then open an issue on the repo, and we'd love to see your feedback, see your ideas for how to improve it. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks for taking us to the Grants Stack. From my experience with Gitcoin, mostly as a donor, like it's mostly geared towards retroactive funding. Like at least from my experience, what I'm seeing is like already existing projects. While if you have ever participated into, let's say, proposing a grant not retroactively, but something yet to be built. For example, in a protocol or a network, the process is a bit of a pain. There's usually a governance forum. Then it will go to something like snapshot, and then finally it gets voted, and there are like 3 different user experiences and processes and stuff like that. Can we expect something along those lines from Gitcoin in terms of like grants that are yet to be built or apps that are yet to be built to be funded through Gitcoin? And what I mean by this is that usually the hardest thing to build there and to coordinate is the discussion around that, because there's an initial proposal, then the community gives feedback, there's like numerous iterations of the proposal until it gets to its final form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Sorry?
It was a question, like, sorry for not formulating it better, but have you explored at Gitcoin, like basically providing an interface for public goods that are yet to be built and not funding already existing public goods?
For funding already existing protocols or not existing?
No.
Sorry, the audio is quite bad, so I can't exactly hear your question.
So Gitcoin works great for funding already existing public goods.
Yes.
But oftentimes, let's say if I want to get a grant from Optimism, it has to go to like multiple iterations to the forum, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Have you explored the idea of enabling funding of public goods that are yet to be built?
So there is nothing stopping you from, if you have a project that is just an idea, right? Maybe you have an idea for anything, basically. There is nothing stopping you from applying to Gitcoin grants. There is no specific rule that would forbid you or reason why we would reject you. In fact, like this is, I agree that Gitcoin is great for funding existing projects. I also personally believe that it's good for funding projects that are yet to be realized, that are basically just an idea. In terms of what you can do as a project owner to make sure that your grant is successful, other than general marketing advice, which I can't really give you, is we have what we call like shilling spaces, which is basically just a Twitter space where you can come and talk about your project, talk about your grant, and make people excited about donating to it. And yeah, so I mean, a lot of the projects that are that were in the current rounds were projects that were basically at the idea stage or prototyping stage. But again, if you have any ideas of how to make that process even smoother, how to make sure that we help new grantees even better, then I'm all for it. Please come to either the Discord or the GitHub or the governance forums. We'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Any more? Yeah, here at the front.
Okay, thank you. I will read to make my question more coherent. I understand the presentation and focus were more technical, but my question is, how would you raise effectively funds for your project? Could you share your perspective as a person from Gitcoin?
How would I raise money for my project?
Yes, for your project. Like
for my project?
Yes, yes. You are focused on Gitcoin. You know well many projects.
So you're asking for like insider info of? No.
Whatever you are comfortable.
No, just kidding, of course. So again, disclaimer, I'm not a marketing person. I think there's definitely better people who actually do marketing as their job that you can talk to. Me personally, I have participated in Gitcoin beta round as a grantee, as a project owner. I think that for me personally, what has helped the most is just get people extremely excited about your project. So it's not enough to just shill it. It's not enough to just like let people know, but just make the project something, or at least sell the project as something that is deeply exciting to people, that people like really care about. Make it personal, basically make it even like emotional. So for example, Revoke Cash, they are already really known. I'm sure like many of you know Revoke Cash, where you can basically monitor all the approvals that you have and then revoke them. If I was the owner of Revoke Cash, it was a completely new project, maybe it was just an idea, and I would like to market it, I personally would just appeal to people that have already lost money, basically, due to some protocol being hacked and them having an approval there. I would just do that. But disclaimer, this is all like marketing advice from an engineer. So do your own research. Thank you.
Yeah. One more.
Hey, thanks. Could you go a little bit more into differences between Allo version 1 and 2 contracts?
Sure. So Allo v1, what we found is that we were kind of biased toward what Gitcoin was doing, right? So we started basically with thinking, okay, we have this grants program, this is how we run it, so here's how we architect the contracts. And that works for us, but it doesn't necessarily work as well for other people. So there are lots of communities, for example, who don't care at all about QF. They just have a pot of money, they have grantees, and they want to distribute that pot of money to grantees. They don't care about quadratic anything, they just want to distribute the money. And so us architecting the contracts around the specific Gitcoin use case, even though we didn't want to do that, but the kind of intrinsic bias was there, made it a little bit more difficult for other strategies like this to be implemented and to be effectively used. So with Allo v2, we made everything a lot simpler. Went with, I believe, the singleton pattern. I'm not on the directly involved in the contracts anymore, but I believe we made it into a singleton pattern. So there's a single contract deployed on a chain through which you do almost all of the actions. We merged the allocation strategy and the voting strategy. So previously that was, or the payout strategy and the voting strategy previously, that was basically split in two. So that's now one. And we already have many more strategies than just QF. We have QV, we have QF, we have direct grants, we have gating by NFTs, we have gating by token balance, I believe, and then some more are incoming. And I know that we have already community members who are coming up with new strategies and implementing them. So I would say, to recap, main difference is simplicity. The other difference is even more proper modularity, so that other people who do not share our specific use case makes it just even simpler to do that. And also Foundry.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
You, Atris. That was the last question. So
okay.
Let's thank our speaker.
Thank you.